Hello, everybody, and welcome to the uh, July 9th, 2025 iteration of the Hyperlight Fortnightly community meeting. This meeting is under the CNCF Code of Conduct, and this meeting will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So be sure to adhere to that that CNCF Code of Conduct. All right, let's get started. If you're, I've dropped a link to the meeting notes in the Zoom chat for anybody who's here. And if you are here, please just mark down yourself as under the attendance. We can keep track of that. Let's get started with announcements. It looks like Hyperlight Wasm 0.7.0 is published. Does anybody want to add a couple comments to that?
Yeah, happy to comment. There's not much we discussed already during the last meeting about the release of Hyperlight Wasm. We skipped the release of 0.6.1 and we went directly for 0.7.0. And yeah, it has all the things that we discussed before. It has a tar that basically unpacks the dependencies and seems to be working. There's one concern I have regarding when we run benchmarks. Apparently, there's a failure to build some C dependencies. I'm a bit concerned that that might be related to using the published version as opposed to a path or Git version. But yeah, so I need to look into that a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just keep track of that. Awesome. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add as an announcement?
Yeah, there was also an issue reported with Hyperlight 0.7.0 that we haven't released a patch release yet for. So we have the fix, but we haven't released a patch.
Okay. Do we want to possibly link to that issue?
Yeah,
We
I'll
can fill
put it in the announcements.
Okay, thanks. We can fill that in.
Is there a characterization of the issue?
Yeah. Is there, do you know what?
Yeah. So it was reported that receiving when running a sandbox, users received a debug not enabled issue. So that was due to the debugging, GDB debugging that was enabled for guests that weren't actually being under debug. So it was fixed immediately after release, but we haven't released a patch yet. I don't know if we're gonna release one or not, if there's any other issues to fix.
Jorge, so you had your hand up.
Yeah, do we want to release a patch or do we want to just roll it out with the next release? Because there's a workaround, right?
Yeah, there is a workaround, and also the latest main has the fix, but yes, who uses the latest release will have issues.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be worth discussing whether we want to release a 7.0, 0.7.1, or we just want that fix to go with 0.8.
So we're targeting like an end of July release. We're correct?
Yeah.
I'll defer. I'm indifferent. Dan, do you have any strong opinions? Or Lucy?
If any other issues come up, we can release a patch then, but with only this one, I don't see the reason at this time.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on this either.
I didn't quite catch that. It was kind of muffled.
Sorry, I just said I have no strong opinion on this either.
Okay. I guess we'll just defer out of laziness then. I guess unless somebody comments they'd really like to see that, then we can of course accommodate that. All right. Unless anybody has any other discussion item or announcements, I think we'll move on to the discussion items. The first discussion item, I brought this up before this, and that's deprecating the MSHV2 feature in the Hyperlight host crate. For folks unfamiliar with this, for the MSHV or the Microsoft Hypervisor stack on Linux, we currently support two different distributions, Mariner Linux and Azure Linux. And Mariner Linux is more or less, well, I think it actually is end of life. And in order to target that when you're building or running your stuff, you target the MSHV 2 feature. And if you want the newer supported version, that's the MSHV 3 feature. I think I'd like to move to deprecate the MSHV2 feature because the underlying Linux distribution that's based on it is end of life. I was taking a look and it does not look like there is a kind of a sanctioned way to mark features in Cargo as deprecated. There was an RFC which did pass a while ago, but the portion to actually mark it as deprecated was never implemented. The one maybe small concern that I have here is currently that is a default feature, and the MSHV3 feature is an optional feature. So I was wondering if we should switch that so MSHV3 is a default feature for one release, and then just remove the MSHV2 feature. I don't know if anybody has any strong opinions on that.
I think I'm in favor of just removing the feature as soon as possible. I think we're past the flag day when absolutely everyone was supposed to be off of MSHV2. So especially if we keep the name MSHV3 for the new feature, at least for now, I think like in theory everyone should already be using the set feature to MSHV3. So switching that to default and removing MSHV2, because setting MSHV3 already unsets MSHV2 effectively inside in what happens and what gets built. So I think we should probably just completely deprecate it, completely remove it at the same time as switching the default. I don't think that the chance that you would see anyone who would want to opt into MSHV2 over MSHV3 during the next month, I think is very low.
That also works for me. Does anybody have any objections to just doing that? Okay, it doesn't sound like it. But I'll make sure that there's an issue pointing probably to the section of this recording afterwards that we can use to just track that. So I think, yeah, we'll just go ahead and remove the feature and mark MSHV3 as the default feature going forward. All right, I think that's probably the end of that discussion item. Who added the memory mapping in Hyperlight core work?
That was me.
Okay, so sorry, I added it, but I think Lucy is the person to talk about it.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you meant. Sorry, I realize now you meant who added the document. I thought you meant who added it to Hyperlight.
No, I meant who added it to like the.
I got it.
Who was owning the discussion?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Jorge, did you have anything you wanted to say about it?
If you can talk about it, that's much better than whatever I can say.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. I mean, basically, Hyperlight Core now supports a kernel to let you map an arbitrary page-line region of host memory into guessed an arbitrary IPA. And we have a PR open in Hyperlight Wasm that uses this to avoid the current really slow serialization technology in order to make loading the Wasm module a lot faster. So it should have a lot of near-term performance impacts if you can use this in your applications. There's some limitations. It only really works for read-only regions right now because it's not integrated with sampling software it would need to be, and also because of some limitations in hypervisor. It only works on Hyper-V. And in the future, both those will hopefully be relaxed. I think it would be really nice in the future to sort of opportunistically use this for serializations that you don't have to have. You can just call a function like normal and you'll magically get this if it's capable of being used. But that's not a thing that we have right now. So yeah, you'll have to go through a little effort to use it.
Is there a little write-up or example on how to use it too that we can point people to?
I think right now there's just the code in the PR in Hyperlight WASM, which shows it off. I hopefully will merge examples and some more smaller tests in for Hyperlight over the next week or two.
Okay, awesome. And we can maybe update some of the examples that we do have that use the WASM components to use that too.
Yes, and there are some. I mean the core Hyperlight stuff there is pretty okay. There's some rough edges around the way it's being used in Hyperlight WASM right now, which we'll have to file off over the next couple of weeks.
Jorge, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, Lucy, you mentioned something like magically in using this to avoid serialization of data. I guess that there's like compromises where, like, for a small amount of data, it's easier to just serialize it than memory mapping things, right? And also, is there like a limit on how many, like, if we map a lot of things into the sandbox, is there a downside to that? And is there any plan for, or can we unmap things?
So currently, we only unmap things when you roll back Sandbox. But obviously, if we did kind of roll the basic technology into the calling into the Sandbox API, then that would probably need to change. And I agree with you. Basically, there's a bunch of trade-offs that are not clear, and whether you can do it fully automatically or you would want some annotation on a WIT file or something saying, please pass this parameter this way. I don't really know. So when I say that, like, this is a thing I would like to look into doing, I mean very aspirationally. I would like to look into it at some point. I haven't really. So basically, these are all good questions. I agree we should think about them. But that isn't done yet. Sorry.
Does anybody have any questions or anything else they'd like to discuss about this? Thanks for that work. I think good to see improvements in the loading time for especially the large WASM components.
Yeah, I love this work. I think it, well, as Lucy already shown with Hyperlight WASM, it has a lot of impact on the performance side. I have some concerns from the API side, and that I would like to discuss with Lucy at some point. But yeah, it's great that this is already merged. We can build from there instead of having to. It's easier when things are there to improve them than just continue to try to get everything perfect on the first. That's unrealistic. But so I'm very happy, and the performance is incredible. The impact it has. I don't think it has been mentioned, but on the benchmarks, WASM time went from consuming over 6 gigs of RAM to consuming 300 megs. That's incredible. Also, the performance, the runtime performance, we went from like 10 requests per second to 300. So I think that there's still work to do for AFD's requirements, but I think it's a great work in the right direction. I think it might be also worth mentioning that this is kind of two things in one. There's something for the host to map memory into the guest, but there's also a work Lucy has done so that the guest can use virtual memory inside of itself. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Lucy, or not.
Yeah, I mean, so that was partly a dependency for having this really be useful for the guests, right? Because the host can map stuff into an IPA region, but the guest then has to map that IPA region to a VA region. So the guest needs to have the support to manage the page tables. So basically, that is also there now, partly as this. As part of that, I also did a pretty low effort thing of changing WASM time to use the virtual memory stuff. There's a bunch of there's especially that's where most of the rough corners I mentioned earlier, with the way it's integrated into Hyperlight WASM are. The support there is super preliminary, and there's a ton of stuff that needs to be done to improve the API and actually provide all of the guarantees and things we want. So I didn't want to highlight it too much at this meeting, but hopefully, we have a real virtual memory API will come up next time.
And is this big drop that we see here in the peak memory usage? Is this what we were referring to?
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, awesome job again with this perf dashboard and Ludwig, and like I think it's really like impressive to see such a huge drop like that. I mean, we're several orders of magnitude worse, and now we're better than some of the other hypervisors, so or components.
You can also check the RPS. Even though it doesn't look like it went up, the scale is so off. Like it actually increased by a lot from like the second to last to the last data.
I think the RPS graph you're looking for is the first graph in the reload section.
Where this one?
Yeah, yeah, on that one. So if you hide some of the if you hide the native performance and dummy guests, you can see a little bit that there's some improvement.
Right here? Oh yeah. They're pretty low before. I guess it was kind of hidden by the scale, as was mentioned. Yeah, very nice work.
Thanks.
Yeah, and no, I agree with what Jorge said. Like even if it's not, even if we might want to change it somewhat in the future, like getting that in and seeing those improvements is very encouraging. Does anybody have anything else you want to add to the discussions? If not, I did see James suggested we do some issue triage with the extra time. I'll take that as no other discussion items. Does anybody want to drive the issue triage? I can stop sharing. Nobody? I guess,
Well, I can do it if I don't know if James had something in particular in mind when he suggested it. If not, or if James is, I think did James just rejoined?
possibly. Yeah, I'm not sure if this was just a general suggestion or not. I see you're unmuted, James, but we can't hear you if you're talking.
Sorry, connectivity issues. uh, what's up? Sorry, I just rejoined a second ago.
Oh, we just saw your comments in the chat about if there's extra time, doing some issue triage would be a good option, and we were wondering if you had specific like set of issues you wanted to triage, or if we should just do the general triage.
Yeah, I was thinking just the general deep triage. I think there's been several that have come in the last week or two.
You want to drive that, Dan? Or
Sure, you can screen share.
awesome.
Let's see. Okay, you should hopefully be seeing my Edge browser.
Yep. Good.
Cool. Right, so we're currently in VO8. How we usually do issue triage is we look at the issues individually to decide if we want to remove them from the current milestone, if we have other issues in mind that we might want to add, and so forth to make sure that we can deliver it somewhat in time. So we still have time until this milestone is due. It's due July 30th. So maybe let's get started with the items that don't have people assigned, and then we can go back to the ones that do. So first one I see is support for the muzzle target. Is this something that we still want to include in the release? If so, maybe we can get someone assigned.
I think we decided this was pretty much just adding CI support for building the host for Missile and having a note on somewhere saying we did it. So I think we should still do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone planning to pick that up?
I can take that one.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks.
All right, James, that's assigned to you. Cool. Up next, we have CI is slow. An issue from Ludwig. I remember Simon did some work already to speed it up, but
I have a PR open that restructures some of the code checks. So we'll run like Clippy format, the verify MS some RV and other things into a separate job that runs in parallel with the Rust tests, and that did help, but I think that there's still a lot of improvements to do.
okay. Is there
I'll-
another area that you're planning to look
I
at?
will take a look at more of this.
Okay, do you mind if I assign it to you then?
Sure, go ahead.
Cool. Next one we have is guest binary optimizations. An issue from James, and it encompasses a couple of sub issues. I don't know if these are in the milestone, are they? Yeah, these
Yeah,
ones are
so
currently.
this
Yeah.
one, there was like 3 or 4 issues that were all kind of pointing at the same thing. I think we said there was going to be other issues that people are looking at right now that are a little bit higher priority. So I don't know if if people are starting to free up on other work and want to take a look at this, or if we just keep going and maybe push this out, since we just decided it's not quite as important as some of the other things that folks are looking at.
Okay. So maybe I guess it's fair to say that the whole issue won't be worked on, but is anyone planning to pick up any of these sub items for this milestone? If not,
So
we
I
can.
think this issue would probably best be solved. Personally, I think we should solve this issue just by doing the snapshotting stuff, and then if we do the snapshots well, this will kind of the important part of this will kind of fall out of focus. So it might end up getting solved because of that. But at least I'm not planning on working on any of these things, apart from snapshotting.
Okay. I know, Jorge, were you looking at snapshotting?
Yes. It kind of grew out of scope because I'm also removing sandbox evolving and devolving, and also changing the behavior of calling guest functions so that it would always persist the no reset version. So, and if you want the reset version, you would have to explicitly create a snapshot and then restore it. So I had that in CI passing, but snapshotting gets a bit more complicated with the mmap work that Lucy merged. So I need to figure out how to do that. Currently, the way it's in the branch at the moment, it works if you would use it as a stack. We were doing before. We had a stack of snapshots, and if you restore them sequentially, then that's fine. But then if you want to use a snapshot from later, that's not fine, because the memory has been unmapped and we cannot map it again. Well, we can, but it's not being done. Also, we need to figure out what we want to do. What's the lifetime of those mapped memories when the snapshot is around? So yeah, there's some work there to figure out what we want to do there with snapshotting and memory mapping. But that's the main issue currently blocking the snapshotting.
Yeah, so it sounds like we could bump this until snapshotting is a little bit more, just like the design is a little bit more finished out, so that we can then revisit if we even need these, or what parts of it we need.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll push it to upcoming, and then when we decide items for 09 we can revisit. We'll see snapshotting still, the work item for snapshotting is still around, and see what that looks like then. I'll also assign the sub items to upcoming just so that they're consistent. Okay. Next, when I make it back to the milestone, we have remove MSHV2 support from Hyperlight. This is one of our discussion items today, but we don't currently have anyone assigned. Seems like we are planning to do this now. So is anyone planning to pick up the work item?
I can take that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. And finally, we have Hyperlight host doesn't build on Windows without any paging feature enabled.
I added this as well. This was a small issue that I ran into when trying to update a different project that's not in the Hyperlight dev org with this, and I think I outlined it there. There's a workaround, and it's just enable the init paging feature in some other libraries, but there was a conditional for a conditional set of includes or uses that aren't there and are needed on Windows.
Okay, I'll fix this one. I'll sign myself. Okay. All right, with that, we should have all the items assigned. We were discussing things that may have grown out of scope. Is there anything here that sort of catches people's eyes on that maybe we should move to 09 or something that we're not planning to work on here anymore? Maybe starting at the top, WASI HTTP implementation. We had Lucy and Simon assigned. I know Simon is out of office. Is this something you're planning to look at in this milestone, Lucy?
Probably depends on how long all the other performance stuff we're looking at for this milestone takes. So, and on how other people using Hyperlight, how much other people using Hyperlight want this to exist. So it could go either way, whether it will be in this milestone or the next one, I think. Might want to check in. We might want to just leave it for now and I'll move it next week if it isn't going to happen.
Okay. So you said leave it for now, right? And check back next week?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, then we have passing large parameters to functions in slow with Doru and Ludwig.
Ludwig, I don't know if you're looking into this, but as I am close to finishing with the profiling, let me know if I can take this.
Yeah, I'm not looking at this right now, so
Okay,
yeah,
then I'll start
go
working
ahead.
on it.
Okay. Is this something we also want to reevaluate next week, or do we feel like this is an 09 item?
No, I think it's going to go into this milestone.
Cool. Then we have profiling. This is the item you just mentioned, Dora. I'm guessing this one's moving along.
It's close to finishing, yes.
Then we have improved performance when creating large sandboxes. This one has a PR open, and I think Ludwig, you picked up that work item from Simon, right?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Right, I'll co-assign you here. All right.
We've got less than 5 minutes in recording too, just to check.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe before I continue, I'll just pause. Are there any items that we feel are not in the milestone that should be added? Anything that came up recently in conversation that maybe we created issues for, but they're not in the milestone yet?
The issues are not up yet because I was going to make the issues after the PR gets merged. But basically, there will be some issues about making the use of virtual memory and exception handling in Hyperlight WASM sound that I would like to add to this milestone. But
Okay, cool.
those are not up yet, so I'll add them when I put them up.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess whenever you add them, just you create the issues, just add them to the milestone, and I think that should be good.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, if there's no more issues that we want to add, maybe we can just continue. Let's see if we can finish off. We paused at snapshotting and restore. Jorge, I saw you mentioned that it was a little bit growing out of scope. Is this still something we plan to leave it in 08 for now, or?
I think we can make it into 08.
Okay. Up next, track performance. Is this still something you're looking at, Ludwig, with picking up the other work item?
Would you mind opening it up?
Yeah, this might have been that.
Oh, I don't think I'm gonna change it much. I feel like it's good enough at this point to visualize what we need, at
Yeah.
least currently. So maybe this is done unless somebody else wants to add something else.
So I think I would quite like the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Harry.
I just wanted to say, Ludwig, I've seen all the tweaks you've been making to the benchmarks, and it's great. I love how the benchmark looks.
Thank you.
Now I think Lucy has something useful to say.
Yeah, Lucy, go ahead.
Yeah, the benchmarks are really good. I was going to say it would be nice to have a little bit of the micro benchmarky stuff added though, because I think like the average request latency that you see on the dashboard turns out to be about 12 and a half times the amount of time that we actually spend in Hyperlight handling a request, because the way the load testing tool, the traffic generated by your load testing tool ends up constantly leaving a queue of 50 requests in. So we see the time for it to filter through. So it ends up being the time for 50 requests to get completed across all 4 cores.
Yeah.
And that's probably useful in terms of reflecting a realistic situation, but it's not super useful in terms of understanding how, where the actual slowness in Hyperlight is and how we want to improve the performance. So it would be really nice to have the micro benchmarks. Now, the downside of this is that the micro benchmarks are kind of useless in nested vert where we're running them right now, because every macro benchmark I put together randomly fluctuates by more than 1 millisecond in 3, which makes them not super useful for actually telling us what is going on. So I don't know whether we want to put something up right now or if we want to integrate this with hopefully having a dedicated host for running benchmarks in the near future or what. But I think we should probably keep some kind of a issue open for those 2 things.
Great. I agree. That sounds reasonable. But I'm not sure I'm going to work on it this week, probably, or this milestone.
Okay.
Okay.
We can
James?
push this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to propose that maybe there's several different components inside this bigger issue, and maybe we just create smaller issues, make them sub-issues, close the one that we completed in this last round, and then we'll get those signed out for the next milestone.
That makes sense to me.
I think it would be really great to see the micro benchmarks on there. So yeah.